We succeeded to take our last steps to freedom in conditions of relative peace. We commit ourselves to the construction of a complete, just, and lasting peace. We have triumphed in the effort to implant hope in the breasts of the millions of our people. We enter into a covenant that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall without any fear in their hearts.
It's our time. It's our time, man.
So our task is towards making the people of South Africa see the value of cannabis and to change the conversation away from recreational drug use into industry.
Sweet news for our people in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal for industrial hemp and cannabis to realize huge potential for investment and job creation.
So we feel like the government officials, in fact the senior ones, should have come to me as well as my people and told them and unpacked all this so that we know what it entails. So we can't be able to comment on something that we don't know. So we plead the government to please bring the officials so that they can unpack this, so that we can be aware of this, so that we can discuss it.
Now, this natural product, which our people have been farming with and harvesting for a number of purposes, is now going to be industrialized and no longer just being resorted to the smoke process.
Insangu le kudala ikhona emampondweni. Ngoku ibekelwa imiqathango ethile ebonakalisa into ba
We have been using and planting cannabis here in Pondoland. Now there are restrictions that prohibit us from using and selling it. These restrictions seek to deprive us and enrich the rich.
Thina asiyamkeli le bill, siyacela into ba kurhoxiswe nezi license.
It's better than the time when the ganja you say is not illegal. Now you say you're gonna say the ganja is legal, but this is not legal. Still close that ganja because there is no way to plant plant. Because in my family, I have 10 members in one house. So I don't think it's a good idea to plant 4 or 12 plants and this family gonna survive about this? No.
We actually feel so strongly about this that following our arrest in 2010, the cannabis laws have been in existence since 1878 in South Africa, and they've never been reviewed and they've never been scientifically proved either.
Because the information was never sent by the same government to the people through the right channels, where if you send it to the areas where people are growing, you can't send it on IT systems. You're supposed to send it through the local government and the traditional leaders. People don't know about it, with business and NGO going all over talking to people about this, which they don't know. Then the next thing, you'll find that when they've closed and passed the bill and it becomes a law, what will happen? A lot of people will be arrested, far more than it was happening during apartheid.
In its judgment, this court concludes that A, Section 4B of the Drugs Act is unconstitutional and therefore invalid to the extent that it prohibits the use or possession of cannabis by an adult in private for that adult's personal consumption in private. B, Section 5B of the Drugs Act is constitutionally invalid to the extent that it prohibits the cultivation of cannabis by an adult in a private place for that adult's personal consumption in private.
We totally disagree because as an organization, we are dealing with young people that we see day in and day out suffering from Dagga. They are university dropouts, they are school dropouts, they've even lost their jobs because of the outcome or what Dagga has brought about in their lives. Many of them come with different, for example, diseases. Like if you can come now to our center, they become disabled, they lose their minds, they can't even use their logic anymore. They totally, their future is ruined because of marijuana, because of Dagga. They can't even think at school. Even if you try to take them to schools, they can't even think, they can't even study. Basically, they've lost everything because Dagga has affected them.
We've got a unit that goes to the schools around Tshwane. At times, maybe we got requests or we are getting requests from the schools that they want us to come and test these kids that they're being found or suspicious of using the marijuana. And yes, in most cases, some of the kids, they test positive, and we release them. After arresting them, we release them under the parents.
But Dagga is a healing for us as the Society of Rastafarian in the whole South Africa. We are more than 1 million Rastas in South Africa, and not one of us that ever turned to violent or any crime for using the Dagga tree.
I think that we need to first and foremost keep in mind that the symptoms of Dagga as we know it today are a result of prohibition. We're not sitting in an environment locally where we see legalization. We know that in countries that have legalized or decriminalized, such as Portugal, Switzerland, and the Netherlands, we have rates that are almost half that of countries such as the US. And I think in all fairness, if we are going to start simply blaming everyone's faults and vices on Dagga, we then also need to accredit their successes. The last 3 presidents of the US of America all used cannabis recreationally. Even Barack Obama in his memoirs has very specifically categorized how significant it was to him as a youth and how well known he was for smoking cannabis. So we know that yes, there are situations where Dagga may not agree with people, but I think we draw with very broad brush strokes when we start saying it disables people, it drives them out of school. I think we should be looking at socio-economic reasons for the outcomes that lead to these situations, as well as Dagga use by the youth.
We understand it still that there is no easy road to freedom. We know it well that none of us acting alone can achieve success. We must therefore act together as a united people for national reconciliation, for nation building, for the birth of a new world. Let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all. Let there be work, bread, water, and salt for all. Let each know that for each, the body, the mind, and the soul have been free to fulfill themselves. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another and suffer the indignity
We've had a great week putting the show together for you. Hope you've enjoyed it. We look forward to catching up with you next week. Remember to like, subscribe, and the main thing, share. And we'll see you next week. Have a good week. Ciao for now.